When fatherhood feels like a solo mission, the pain of being overlooked. This is what we're going to discuss in today's video. Fatherhood can, despite the fatherhood being a shared responsibility, it can also feel like you're doing it by yourself. Despite the fact that you got your partner there with you side by side. She's doing her thing, you're doing your thing, but you get unnoticed. Whilst the mother in society is usually praised. She's the one who gets recognized for doing so much in terms of contributing towards the family, and the father doesn't do nothing. This is how society has been portrayed. But how much contribution does the father actually really do? Especially emotionally. How much does he bring to the table? Why is the father overlooked for his efforts and the mother is so praised? There's a stereotype, typical image of the father often being the provider and the disciplinarian. But when it comes down to emotional well-being, the aspect of emotional well-being usually goes to the mothers, but not to the fathers. But did you know that fathers are also highly emotional as well? And society has a limited view in terms of how the father is emotionally connected. He's seen as the disconnected one. It's usually the mother that gives it all, her heart, her soul, her mind, and her body through her efforts towards the family. But the father now, he's absent, he's distant. This is what has been portrayed in society. But who out here in society talks about how fathers play a massive contribution towards the emotional needs of his own family? This goes unnoticed. This often goes unnoticed. And why? Because the fathers suffer in silence. This is not a type of video where I'm promoting victimism for fathers. You know, we're all victims, and no, it's not that kind of video. This is just an awareness type of video. And with that little disclaimer being said, fathers do carry the weight and the responsibility of the financial stability. Who is supporting them emotionally? Because there's pressure to perform. There's pressure to go out there, get the bread. There's a pressure on the fathers to be the best father that they can, provide emotional support. And then you got the stresses that the father has to face, always trying to be top dog, number one for his family. That's a lot of pressure. And these are the sort of things that the father tries to do his best. And I'm talking about the right-minded fathers who come correct. They try to do their best, but it gets unnoticed. This is what I'm trying to say. His efforts get ignored, and the mother's work and her efforts always get highlighted. They get praised. Whilst the father's one, yeah, okay. He can do better. He can do more, or he's not doing enough. Those are the three expectations by society and family that gets thrown at the fathers. So how does this impact the mental health of the father? There's a number of ways. It can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to paternal burnout. And the lack of acknowledgement and praise and gratefulness towards the father of what he does and his contributions can lead to mental health challenges. Why? Imagine this. Let me flip it. You're at work, you're doing your best, you're hitting the targets, and you're making the boss rich, your boss rich, but you're not getting acknowledged for it. How would that make you feel? You're putting in extra hours. You're turning up early on time for work, and you're making the company lots of money, but you get unrecognized. You don't even get acknowledged. How do you think that will make you feel? In fact, the boss will turn around and say, well, yeah, you could do a bit more, and they'll probably pressurize you to perform more and more and do more and more things, whilst in return, you do not get acknowledged, you do not get recognized. And if you do, it's just a little pat on the back. That's it. Once in a while, once in a blue moon. The other thing is this. Imagine the mother does the sacrifice day in, day out, wakes up early, attends to the kids, attends to the homework of the kids, feeds, cooks, cleans, runs the household, and tries to keep her partner happy, and she doesn't get acknowledged. How do you think that will make the mother feel? Well, guess what? The father is also a human being, because he also feels the same pain as well in other areas that get unacknowledged. This is what I'm trying to bring to your attention. At the end of the day, the fathers are not machines. They are human beings. They too need to get praised. They too need to get acknowledged. This is what I'm trying to bring to your attention, folks. There's this disconnect from fathers and mothers that society portrays that a father should be. You know, the one who's always performing, the go-getter, the top dog, the top G. Imagine having that stress to perform. And when you don't live up to that, then you're down for ridicule. You're down for criticism. How hurtful is that? What about the efforts? Doesn't that get highlighted? Doesn't that get praised? Doesn't that get acknowledged? What happened to being grateful? There's none of that. So this is what I'm trying to say. And when there's none of that, it could lead to depression. It could lead to all sorts of mental health issues. It could lead to resentment. Why? Because imagine this, that you're pouring your heart out, that you're putting your time, your effort, you're sacrificing your all to your family. In return, you get stamped on. In return, not just you get stamped on, society doesn't acknowledge you. No one acknowledges you. And you have to keep on soldiering on. You have to keep going. You have to keep going. Despite the fact that you're dealing with all sorts of rejection, your criticism, you're not good enough. You need to do more. You're being undervalued. You're being undermined. You're not even being acknowledged. As a human being, every human being has a right to be acknowledged for their efforts. Or just as a right to be acknowledged as a human being for what they're doing, how they're contributing. But society is not watching that. Our spouses are not watching that. It's just you perform, you do, that's it. Until the father's gone. Then he gets noticed. And that's a sad case. That's usually the sad case. Why is it that we acknowledge things, what we have already, but once it's gone, that's when we acknowledge it. We really feel it. We really feel what has been missing. But it doesn't have to be like that. This is what I'm trying to bring to your attention. So through this, guess what it leads to? Communication breakdown between spouses. I'll tell you why. Because if the father feels isolated, if he feels that he cannot turn to his spouse for emotional support because it's seen as a weakness, where's he going to go? Who's he going to turn to? And some fathers actually bottle it up inside, what they're going through, stress, anxiety, depression, and they don't communicate it. And the way that they would communicate it is in a negative way. It can come out through anger, resentment towards their spouse. And all it took was just a bit of praise here and there, acknowledgement here and there, gratitude here and there. It goes a long way. And this is also a two-way thing, believe it or not. But in this video, I'm just trying to focus on what the fathers are going through. So this is what I'm saying. Usually the fathers are invisible. They feel invisible. We feel invisible because once we have laid down our work, we have laid down our sacrifice, we have made the sacrifice, but it gets dismissed. The thing is this: a lack of shared responsibility and acknowledgement can create emotional distance. And especially it can create a distance within the family unit. This is what I'm saying. And what I'm trying to bring to your attention. And then also, you have the children who may also internalize this, the idea of the father is secondary. He's not really the main important one. The main important one is the mother, not the father. And guess what happens when this gets promoted in society and it seeps into the family? The father becomes less important. It's all about the mother and the children, and the father gets dismissed and it breaks up the family. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be the mother and the father are a strong unit together. And the children need to see this, because this is what truly will bring a flourishing family, a nurturing family, where the mother and father are together, they're working together, they're grateful for each other's efforts, they acknowledge each other's efforts. And this is what it should be about. If people's efforts are not acknowledged, I'm just talking about people now, I'm sort of sidetracking, but it's still linked in. How would you like it if you put in so much effort into something for your company, for your family, or for your friend, or whoever it is, and you don't get even a little thanks, even a little acknowledgement, even a little gratitude. How would that make you feel? You're less likely to try it next time. You're less likely to communicate and want a relationship with that person. You're more likely to close off. You're more likely to just actually separate from the relationship. And this is what's happening in fatherhood. Fathers get unnoticed, and it creates a lot of distance. Fathers are always seen as secondary. We are not acknowledged enough. That's what I'm saying. And what's the standard is mothers will get not acknowledged regardless. But the fathers are usually portrayed as the klutz, the clumsy one, the one that's dulali, don't even know what he's doing. You know, he's a bit, he's not there, he's not present, he's just aloof, he's all over the place. But that may not be the case. Have you ever spoken to that father, your spouse, on a level? Do you even think for a minute that the father, your spouse, can open up to you? Does he feel safe enough to open up to you? Because if he's been criticized, if he's not been acknowledged, that's highly likely that he's not going to open up to you. So where does he go? Sometimes he bottles it up inside and he turns to all forms of some kind of outlet. It could be drugs, it could be exercise, it could be something healthy or unhealthy. But he has to soldier on. It's lonely, it's hard. A lot of us fathers have gone through this. This is what I'm trying to say. So, in conclusion, fathers are not machines. They do need emotional support. And the way to emotionally support a father is just acknowledge. Acknowledge your spouse, number one. Number two, be grateful and have open communication. Understand where each other's struggles are coming from. Don't dismiss each other. This is what I'm trying to say, because we get unnoticed and it's painful and it's hurtful. We don't want to be in a relationship where you could be with someone, your spouse, but still feel lonely, still feel isolated. And that's in the relationship. You're seeing them day in, day out, but yet you're like this. Why is that? So these are the things to just bring to your attention. It's about validating the contributions of the father and changing societal expectations of the father. This is what we have to do, because unity is not being promoted in society. Fathers are not being acknowledged. Mothers are being highly acknowledged, but not the fathers. You know, they're just distant. They're just somewhere in the background. In fact, sometimes it can be, fathers can be seen as a nuisance. And that may not be the case. It's just a misunderstanding. So these are just a few things I've elaborated on to be mindful of. Fatherhood is a place where we do feel isolated, despite the fact that we can be in a relationship with our spouse.